Right, so let's cover this. This was from the Global Lab last week. I wasn't here to cover it live, but the main thing we want to look at here is the information regarding the PvP update, the class multipliers, the damage calculations, all of this, because a lot of people seem to have been reading too much into it in terms of expectations, the classic of applying future iterations to current situations. So I wanted to cover this and look at the things they're actually saying, and then also give my 2 cents on what to expect and definitely what not to expect. So let's take a look here. First off, the message from PA on this entire thing. Greetings, Adventurers. We're here to share an update on the upcoming overhaul of the damage calculation formula, which we first announced at the recent Heidel Ball. This is huge. Original plan was to gradually roll out these changes to the Black Desert Global Lab starting today, July 11th. However, due to the fact that every part of the combat system is deeply interconnected, testing would be less accurate if you only had a portion of it. It's the same thing when it comes to class balance, which I will be repeating down the road, right? If you change one class, that does affect all other classes in PvP, so keep this in mind. Therefore, we decided to apply all combat system improvements at once on July 18th, so that should be next Friday, right? On the Friday Global Lab. So that means that we should expect to see the stuff this Friday, right? On Global Lab, we'll cover it here live on the channel. However, that doesn't mean that it was going to be applied to the live servers the following week like it normally does. Because as they're saying here, for the official servers, we're aiming to apply the changes July 23rd and no later than July 30th. So it could be like one more week of changes before it hits live. But this also means that it's pretty much done, right? So we'll know a lot more when we get it. But this is honestly just on its own massive. This is a huge fundamental change. And of course, it's going to be a huge clown fiesta for the beginning whenever we get stuff like this. But when we go through the changes, I think these changes are going to be good changes for allowing PA to better balance PvP going forward. It's gonna remove some of the issues, and it's gonna give them some better tools to finding a better balance. It doesn't mean we get balance, right? But at least PA should have a better probability of being able to do some better balancing. Hopefully. Anyway, right? So we're gonna get an overview here of the main stuff. So here's the UI stuff. We don't gonna talk too much about that. Limited mouse movement while using this technology. This is a W. My stance on the PvP mouse movement is that sure, it's a skill expression. The problem with it is that it's also a skill denial of the opponent because of how it functions in this game with the desync and teleporting on movement skills. So I think it's a net negative for skill expression in BDO because sure, the guy mouse moving, it takes a bit of skill, but it also removes reactions and options of counterplay for the opponent because like you can see someone at the other end of the map and like, okay, there's nothing, and suddenly he's right next to you. So the only course of action you had was just running away or just ignore it, right, and do something else. So I do think it's a net. Also, my stance on this is if classes that are overly reliant on this or like abusing or whatever you want to call it, like suck servers or whatever, right? If they become bad, which I doubt, right? Servers are not going to be bad because of removal of this. Let's be real. Most of the people fought on rerolling this and face rolling in AOS, they weren't mouse moving. They were just holding down W. The class functions really well even without this. It's just annoying for the opponent that you don't even get a course of action to play against it, right? But anyway, if it sucks, it just buff it, right? Your class shouldn't be balanced around making other people not play the game, right? It shouldn't be balanced around a bug. Fix the bugs, fix the bullshit, and then if a class needs compensation to be playable, then give it that. Those two things are not mutually exclusive. So I'm happy about this, and I'm super happy. This was my biggest concern with this, was that PA were going to forget stuff. They've been pretty good at not doing that lately, so I'm happy to see this. They're not taking away the mouse movement for gathering and things like that, right? So that's good. Increase the attack power of monsters according to notable. This is PvE stuff. I guess I can quickly talk about what this will mean. Basically, every sheet AP you have after 310 is going to give you 8 monster AP. It also means that most likely the small buffs are not going to be as impactful. If you have 350 AP right now, it basically means you're going to get 400 bonus monster AP. Now, a quick note about this, and this is why I wanted to make this video, is that we don't know what that means. Because they are rebalancing all the grind spots. So we don't know what the new numbers are going to be. They're probably going to adjust DR as well in the mobs. So even you have 400 more AP, if they just increase the DR of the mobs by around 400 as well, you probably won't feel a difference in the damage, right? So we're going to have to wait and see what this actually means. I have an idea what they're trying to do here. And they talk about that as well in terms of progression. But there's one thing I pretty much can guarantee with this change, even though like I can't negotiate, I don't fucking work for PA. But 99% sure this will mean that no matter where you are in the game right now, you will be grinding faster. Almost a guarantee. You'll be making more silver, right? Lower end, you have the AP caps. You can probably go to a higher end spot. You get more AP. You'll probably be progressing faster at the end of the day. That's definitely why they want to do stuff like this. So let's talk about the grind spots. They are hard capping, well not hard, 5% capping all grind spots in the game. The good thing about this is from a new player perspective. For pretty much ever in this game, a new player starts playing the game, you go to one grind spot. The good old was like Honglim base until you're 330 AP, and then you go and do, I don't know, D2 Olens or whatever, right? Pretty much like Honglim base until you can do trolls, and then you do until you can do DSR, until you can do D2 Olens. Not exactly fun. It used to be the good old like Centaurs until you're 301, and then you do Gyfin until you're hard cap, right? So by doing this, they can balance the grind spots more. So another complaint people have had is there's not enough relevant grind spots. Well, the problem with the current iteration of AP and grind spots is that the way you make a grind spot relevant is by buffing it. But when we're talking low AP spots, right? Unless it's the best, people don't go there. So, and low AP, you can also do it high AP. So you basically get the Honglim base situation where people just go there even with higher AP and people with lower AP, and everybody just grinds it. And it's still that one spot, and the only way you make another spot relevant is by making it better, and now everyone goes there instead. So it doesn't actually make more viable grind spots in the game, it just changes it around. So with this, right, you can layer the grind spots, having them actually structured around the value attached to the AP, because you know somebody like me or Looney is not gonna go there and break the game with high AP and suddenly turn a 269 AP grind spot into a 2 billion an hour spot because, well, it wasn't balanced around the high AP. So by this way, you can actually make a direct path for people progressing in this game where they get to grind multiple different places, and this way make more viable grind spots, especially in the early and mid game. So I think this is going to be great for enjoying the game for newer players or people progressing. You don't just have to lock in at one spot. As soon as you get to an AP, now the next spot should be better. So you go to that one, and then to that one, and to that one. And PA can now do this without fearing or out the risk of people with high AP breaking grind spots. So I think this is going to be a good thing in the long run. But I am curious what you guys think about this one. I know this has been a bit back and forth of people's opinion, but this is how I see it at least. Right, also another one is the Agris Fever efficiency being unified. I think this is great. Let people grind where they want to grind. That's more or less my approach with a lot of stuff. I do hope that they bring back grinding for things. I'm not a fan of silver grinding. I don't like it myself. I miss grinding for items. I miss going to a specific grind spot because I needed this drop over here for my progression. Not just I need the best silver so I buy crunch stones and then tap my gear, right? So I miss the debo. I don't miss debos, but I miss grinding for the debos. And I hope that maybe one day we get like an enhancement stone grind that's also 10 hour or whatever, right? But that's beside the point. Agris Fever, right? Let's just, especially new players, that just grind where you want, right? That's it. They're making a solo grind as well for tourists. That's good. It's an issue getting the flame, especially long term. So this is like a step in the right direction. Okay, I think that's pretty much it with the PvP stuff for the most part, right? The changes to damage reduction rate application rule. right now, different buffs and effects are applied differently, either multiplicative or additive, and I believe they're changing all the DR buffs to be additive, right? Just want to make sure here. The buffs attained when using skills among damage reductions will be changed so they do not overlap. Example, when the damage reduction effect of PA, protected area, is applied, the damage reduction skill of the 5 element symbols will not be applied. Okay, so all the stacks, all the different DR buffs don't stack anymore, so it's harder to get into that unkillable range, which is also going to be relevant with the shy changes. The rejection body effect will be changed when there is a body debuff that rejects damage reduction effects with a duration of 6 seconds or more, and a skill effect of 50% or more, they cannot be received. So this, I believe, is the debuff from PA, right? The protected area buff. So anything over that, it's not just PA anymore, it's all the things with that. So that would be, I guess, here in the case of Awakening Corsair's passive. Buff application rules in Black Desert. This is just a summary. I don't believe this is a change. It's just how they work. It explained here. Okay, so this one here is another one where I'm not 100% sure what this means, but I have an idea about it. But it's the add-ons changes. So skill, specialization, technology, that's add-ons. The following effects will be removed from add-ons: monster AP increase, human damage increase, and human damage reduction. Right, but let's go on. The monster damage increase in the spells, the add-ons, will now be moved to the monster, the bonus monster attack power section. Accordingly, the corresponding effect will be removed from the add-ons. I'm not sure what that means, but maybe it's a new add-on they're giving us. It's just calling something different since they changed the names of human stuff as well. But yeah, I'm not entirely sure what this means. And then the human damage effect only applies to monsters. And the the buff applied during PvP has been changed to adventure additional attack damage. So the human additional damage and skill specialization will be removed. So this is just explaining that they are separating species damage, right? So human damage right now works on human mobs, but also players. They're changing that, right? I think it's a passive. Okay. So this, okay. If it's a passive, then it does what I was actually expecting to see from this, right? And let me explain that in a bit here. So the human damage effects only applies to monsters, right? And that means they're removing it, right? So this is a change so the skill specialization can be used equal in PvP and PvE, right? So here is the crux of it. Whenever you make a PvE build, of course there's min-maxing, right? But in general, the big differences between a PvE add-on and PvP add-on is you have monster damage in PvE, but you want to use human damage and maybe minus human damage in your PvP. Now, of course, stuff like accuracy is also very relevant, but now you're freeing up these add-ons, right? So what PA wants to do with this, and it's not going to do it perfectly, but it's going to be way better than this now, is to make you able to play both PvE and PvP without changing add-ons. Now, of course, min-maxers, you will still want to do it, but since you're not missing these huge buffs, if somebody jumps you out grinding, right, you're already the right add-on spec. Now, of course, there's down smashes, there is down attack versus back attacks and things like that. So it's not like a one-to-one, but it should close the gap a little bit and give you a better starting position for going straight into PvP. Hopefully it shouldn't be a problem if we get into all the one presets, but I guess that's what they're trying to do, also with Idania and PvP probably being a bit more active in the zone. So for accuracy and evasion, right? As previously announced at Banquet, all character skills, hit rates, and hit rate effects obtained with using the skills or when hit is successful will be removed. So this should be we saw the image, it highlighted all the accuracy on skills, right? Skill accuracy rates will also be removed from skills that summon monsters. So they're removing the accuracy on every skill. It's already equalized, except a few skills here and there. and they're gonna put that accuracy in a passive. So all your skills in a class will have the same. Now, there's some other stuff here. The hit rate corresponding to the existing standard hit rate of 25%. 100% when hit, okay, so 4 accuracy is 1%, so it's 25% hit rate is the same as 100 accuracy. For each character will be added to the infinite mastery skill. So let me quickly explain this. Currently, all classes, maybe except 1 or 2, has a total of 25% accuracy, either through a flat 20% accuracy on all the skills, or through, for example, Warrior has 90% accuracy on all skills and a 6% accuracy buff. So having the 25% accuracy is the best you can have, because that way you have the most accuracy and then you fully benefit from other people's accuracy buffs, if they exist, like Valkyrie. Now, if that's going to exist, I don't know. But let's say Warrior, I have 90%, 6%. Well, that doesn't stack if I get a buff from another class, so I have then 6% less than 25% class would have. So they're equalizing this across the board, which means that classes that had lower accuracy but more buffs should be generally better off. We won't have to pre-buff or whatever, right? Again, what does this mean? We don't really know, because there are so many other changes. So it doesn't have to be a buff, right? It doesn't mean that suddenly you're farming evasion. However, the hit rate increase effects in the skill passive will be replaced by 4 hit rate per 1%. So I guess they're also removing percentage to make it easier to understand and changing all numbers into accuracy. You have no way of knowing that 4 accuracy is 1% hit rate and 5 evasion is 1% evasion. Well, I guess they're... it gets 4 maybe as well. It should be 5 big and shiny numbers. But now they're changing it all to then just the flat stat, so it's easier to understand, I guess. And they do the same here with the hit rate decrease and evasion rate increase, and evasion rate decrease will be replaced by 4% evasion accuracy per 1%, and then applied. So this should also, if the old numbers are correct, actually be a slight buff to evasion, as it's normally 5 evasion for 1%. Now you're getting... oh no, it's replacing it, so that would technically be a nerf to evasion if that's the case, right? Because then you're going to end up with less total. Interesting. They might be changing the formula so it is a 1-to-1 regardless, right? That would be my guess. The hit rate effects also applied to allies will replace with the hit rate and the values applied. So this is just like a unification between the stuff. What do we know what this means? Nothing, because there's so many other things happening. Okay. Now you have the PvP multipliers, the class multipliers, I should say. Right. So every class has a specific multiplier against every other class. So for Warrior, I have, for every single class, I do X amount of damage. There are some classes that do 95% damage to, there are some classes that do 105% damage to, there are some classes I do 87% damage to, there's some classes that do 109% damage to. Right? So, that's going to be unified. And then you're going to have groupings that's going to have plus 5% damage against each other as a rock, paper, scissors. And you can see them all here. Now, this is another thing where I think some people are overestimating. So I can give you an example of where you will see a difference. I can guarantee you'll see a difference here. It's DKs versus strikers and mystics, right? The gauntlets. So we know that DKs will have then a higher PvP because like it's one of the worst, like so terrible. I don't think it's like, is it 67 or something? It's 70, 80. It's terrible against them. So they will be doing more damage though because it's getting equalized, right? But there's another thing that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be doing crazy much more damage to them, because what is really important with these multipliers is not the actual number. It's the difference in number for every class. So here's an example, right? Let's say you have a class that has 110% damage against all classes. That doesn't mean that that class deals more damage than a class that has 90% multiplier against all classes, because you still have the damage of the abilities. So DK is an example that has really bad multipliers. DK does a ton of damage, right? And so It's more like the actual difference within the class that's going to be determining a lot here. So how is this it's going to be buff? It's going to be a buff against some class, nerf against other classes, but I don't think it's going to be a giga buff and nerf either way. PA is also saying that they're trying to adjust the PvP multipliers, the damage, to make sure that it's a similar feel to the class. The good thing about this, so let's talk quickly about the multipliers. My opinion on the class multipliers is that it is the best tool you could ever make to balance the game. Because with class multipliers that we're losing now, it allows you to adjust a specific matchup for balancing purposes without adjusting anything else. So let's just say we have a class that's good against DKs but bad against strikers. Well, I could then adjust the numbers on those and only affect those two classes. Whereas what PA normally does is they buff abilities. So now you get better against the class you're worst of, but you get even better against the class you're already good at. So this is why it all affects everything. It's a super good system being able to micro adjust specific matchups without affecting other matchups that maybe need a nerf. Well, then how are you gonna nerf it and then buff something else? Well, that would allow to do it. The problem is that PA doesn't do this. It's been underutilized. It's only been adjusted, I think, like 3 or 4 times that I can remember in all the time the game has been out. So what's the point of it if you're not gonna use it? So I would have hoped that people would actually start using it, but if you're not gonna use it, get rid of it. At least this way, with the way PA is actually balancing classes, this year is gonna be better. It's gonna be more straightforward. It's gonna be better understandable, and hopefully we'll have like a bit easier time seeing some class changes make sense, right? But yeah, that's the gist of this here. One thing I do think is weird is the different specs being, it makes sense, right? But I'm thinking tournament played and suddenly like Awakening War is gonna have an advantage against Sock War in a 1v1 war turn, like the master class. So I think that's a bit weird, like just playing a specific spec, you get a plus 5% against like in a masterclass tournament, but that's minor things, right? This year, I think it's gonna be good because PA doesn't utilize the system as this, right? So that's pretty much about it. How will this feel when we get it? We don't know. We don't know. So don't read too much into the numbers right now and, oh, my class does this, so this is gonna happen. Yeah, well, everyone is getting changed, so we'll see. Next up is the summon-related adjustments, where at this, the summon attacks, right? Pet attacks, summon attacks, they are coded differently. They work different, they scale different, they don't scale with a lot of special attacks, like back attacks and crit damage. Even though they can crit, they don't scale with crit damage, I believe. So they're changed into, it's always been an issue, historically, always with this game, was classes that had species damage, also like special attacks, pet attacks, god damn it, like pet attacks, summon attacks, is that they either nuke people, had really good base damage like Witch Wizard, one-shotting people standing up into Valor gear, but then you got to late game and it had no AP scaling, it didn't scale with your gear proper, so you just did no damage. They're changing it now to be completely normal. They're removing, as far as I understand, all of the special summoned/pit attack coding and making it normal. That's gonna be a buff. But that's assuming that they just do that change and leave it be. We don't know what it's gonna look like. It's gonna be probably a nerf at some gear, it's gonna be a buff at in-game, pretty guaranteed. But they are probably going to adjust numbers on classes and everything. So again, we don't know what to expect. I would definitely assume they're gonna adjust and nerf damage numbers. Hi. That's good. Okay. Adjust the effects of increased attack power and decreased defensive power and increased special damage. Currently in Black Desert, there are cases where actual attack power differs even when wearing the same equipment. Example would be Awakening Witch Wizard. They got a 20 AP passive, and then they also get, I think it's 10 or 20 AP from their stackable passive, right? The one that gives attack speed as well. The wizard also has like way higher just character. A winged wizard has the highest AP in the game. I think it has like over 25, 26 AP, more than some other classes, just cell buffed up and everything. Only Sage has more with ebuff, but it's only a bit, I think it's 8 more AP. It's just crazy high. The difference is massive, and it didn't used to matter as much, but it does a lot now because the DI is higher, and so 1 AP is a bigger percentage increase, since just how damage works with DR. It's basically the difference between your AP and DR. So let's say if the difference is 100, then 1 more AP is a roughly 1% damage increase. If it's like 200, well then it's only 0.5% damage increase. So just the less effective AP you have, the more this matters. And then they had a lot of times higher AP scalings on numbers and everything. So they're trying to equalize this a bit more, and it's going to make balancing easier. That's about it. So expect to see probably a nerf to high AP and buff to... We're going to have pretty much the same AP across the board on classes. So it's going to be the difference with AP numbers and DR numbers is going to be mostly on gear. And that's also going to mean they're going to adjust damage numbers on abilities, right? Now, I guess my concern with this, and I think it's pretty much my only concern with this, is the homogenization, I think I say that word roughly correct, of classes. The only way you get balance in a game is by making everything the same. And that's boring and unfun. So this is definitely a step towards making classes more like each other, removing uniqueness and some identity from classes, but there's also so many classes right now. So this year is definitely a hit to that for balance. And there is a point where it's too much, right? But I don't think this is it. So the class is still different abilities, different roles, different this and that, right? Just because you change the sheet stats a bit, it doesn't mean that you don't have high damage classes. It doesn't mean you don't have high tank classes. You still have damage reductions, you have buffs, you have debuff. And you can adjust the multipliers as well for all of this. So it's, yeah. It is, I don't think it's going to be bad. It is something that long term, if they keep going that route, could be a bit too much, right? You don't want to erode class identity, but this year, like this, I think it's gonna be totally fine. Gonna be easier to balance, and I think that's a good thing. There's too many knobs to turn on right now with classes, and that's why you never get good balance in this game. Okay, so I think that's pretty much it, right? The future defense power of monsters will be greatly divided. It'll be improved in a way that allows you the best efficiency in hunting ground that matches your attack power, so meaning of attack power was greater than before, and that's why they're like unifying it a bit more. Also, they're nerfing all the percentage DR and evasion stuff, like the shy. Is this going to be a buff or a nerf? Well, it's probably going to be a buff against low DR, maybe it's a nerf against high DR, or maybe it gives you so much minus flat stats that it's a buff against anything. I'll say it's like suddenly minus 500 DR. Yeah, that's pretty good. So again, we don't know what the number is going to be. We don't know if it's going to be a buff or not. So for the most part, this is a good change. This is a good long-term balance change. And this is how I'm reading this. And this is why I'm excited about this. All of these things that they are touching on and saying we're going to do these things, we don't know what the outcome will be, and the outcome will need a lot of fine-tuning. But all of these things they're going through and touching on, it's long-term complaints people have had with the game because of the imbalances it helps create. So finally addressing all of these is massive, massive long-term. And that's why I'm really excited to see where it's going to go. It's going to be a clown fiesta with balance in the beginning. It is what it is. But these are stuff we've all been asking for years. Next up is, of course, following all of these general changes, we'll see class balance changes. We'd like to inform you that even after the calculation renewal update is implemented, we will closely monitor the situation and class balance adjustments may be made if necessary. They will be made, of course they will. There's no chance they don't. Just Witch Wizard, Awakened Witch Wizard alone obviously needs changes because of the changing to summoned and / pet attacks, right? So we'll see what this is, but I also think it's a good idea to make the big changes first, see what happens, because a lot of these changes will affect classes in a way we didn't expect, right? And then go from there. Maybe, who knows? Who knows? Maybe with all these changes, Zergers and Strikers are gonna be balanced. Maybe say, okay, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Never mind. Anyway, resistance and resisting ignore effects. We knew this. It's gonna get removed. It's gonna be PvE only, and also on that regard, they're gonna turn the offense into giving +10 resistance. So that's gonna be a lot easier getting your 100% resist for places in PvE that we need resistance on. That's great. Yeah. My thought on the resist removal. I am a dirty, filthy resistance stacker enjoyer, and I've pretty much always been, because I play at high ping and I just get CC'd left and right. So at least to give me a chance to play the game once in a while. But I understand why people want it gone. However, I'm afraid that a lot of people are gonna realize that they were resisting a lot more than they thought. You don't often notice when you resist a CC, you think you're just good, but you notice when the guy you're trying to damage resists a CC. So I think a lot of times people resist CCs without realizing, not like a re-CC on the ground, you see that, right? But like getting caught and all that. And I'm afraid that this here is going to make people spend a lot of time on the ground and then start complaining about lack of super armors and protections and shit like that. So hopefully this won't snowball into people crying on the forums to get more protections and bring back super armor demonstrate meta and nobody ever getting CC'd, right? So that's what I'm hoping, but let's see about that one, right? Okay, and here are like all the abilities getting changed and whatnot. Next up is a great one. It's the changes to grabs. All right, this is good. First off, I think the biggest change here is going to be the visual. The visual indicator, it means that you will now see when somebody used a grab and whiffed it or missed it, so you can play accordingly. Most people just don't notice when somebody grabs. Not everybody knows the grab animations of every classes. A lot of stuff happens at once, right? You might miss somebody using a grab into the air. This here gives you a clear indicator of, okay, I can play a different way right now. So that's one I'm happy to see. And then there's some other changes as well. And this here gets a bit more complex. So there are locked animations on grabs, right? For close range and long range grab skills, the character will only rotate toward the camera immediately after grab is cast and will unable to rotate after that. Is it like for mouse moving stuff? Like I'm maybe it's because my class can't rotate if I'm grab somebody other than mouse moving it. I won't be able to do that because mouse moving is not possible, right? I guess maybe there's some classes that can like walk around, like circles, right? Maybe. Whatever. For the dash grabbing skills, the character will only rotate towards the camera during the start of the dash and will unable to rotate after. Yeah, okay. As long as you can turn and then grab and it grabs that direction, we're good, right? Then we're good. Grabbing skills will not be affected by the decrease in attack speed, cast speed, regardless of success or failure. This is going to be a huge nerf to grabs, right? Huge nerf to grabs. This basically locks the time. So there are some grabs that are slower than others and lingers for longer on failure. But even those grabs, right, having E buff popped, a C buff, well, you can get out of it a bit quicker. This here seems to be locked in, right? So in a lot of situations, this will just be a flat nerf on grabbing. For close range grabbing, the preceding action will be adjusted to take 0.3 seconds. Now, look at this here. All right, let's open this. Let's look at it. So, if you notice, like, when this pops up and then when the super armor is there, the super armor is when the grab connects. So there's a tiny, tiny, tiny little gap, right? Where the grab goes off and then the grab connects. Right? But 0.3 is not a lot. I know people are like, oh my god, grabs are dead, you can just dash those out. The way I see this is not that you will be able to react to a grab. Unless you're like giga low ping and you got a sumo brain and hands to match it, right? Realistically, this will not change anything. A lot of grabs already have a bit of a wind up, right? But what this should do is also like it's the desync, right? So let's say you stand still, somebody grabs, and then you react, you're probably gonna get grabbed because of desync anyway. However, if you see somebody coming in and you're actually iframing that grab, there's now a bigger probability that your iframe works because of this forced like wind up on it. It should help make your iframe actually work. That's 0.3 seconds if you're preemptively iframing the grab coming in. Hopefully it's not time for your iframe to reach the server and then be like, oh, nope, grab miss, right? So that's a big change I see with this. It's not that you're going to be able to react to people grabbing. It's that now your preemptive reaction might actually work. So that's pretty big, honestly. Dash grabbing skills, preceding action will adjust it to take 0.3 to 0.4 seconds, depending on distance. And then in the case of long distance grab, preceding action will be adjusted to take between 0.4 to 0.7, depending on the distance. So yeah, well, this is a visual improvement, Krushak. At least you see this big pop-up whenever they grab. But more of this stuff would be great, like an indicator that you're KD'd or whatever, that would be cool too. And then when the grab fails and a chain with another skill becomes possible, it will unify to 0.4 seconds after failure. But yeah, like classes already have a bit of a grab fail. Some classes have way longer than others. Warrior is one of the bit longer. Ranger is basically non-existent, and some classes you can instant iframe after you fail a grab. So this here is going to mean that you can proper punish failed grabs if you are aware of it, right? So I think this is great. It's the best single like click CC of it. I think vacuums are worse, right? But in terms of a play like how good it is, it's probably the second best, if not the best CC in the game. Bypasses protections, right? It should come at a cost. It shouldn't be free, even though a class balance is balanced somewhat around having it. It shouldn't just be spam it out every time you have it and just hope one of them sticks. You should have to think about using this insanely powerful CC. So I'm happy to see this. All in all, I think it's great. Yeah, and then if it turns out that some classes, again, becomes unplayable because they were fully balanced around this and it's too much, well, then you could consider buffing them another way. A class that comes to mind would probably be Awakened Lan. This might be too much for Awakened Lan to be like reliable in PvP in any capacity. And if it is, then you buff it elsewhere, right? Having a class being balanced purely around grabs, well, I don't even think it's that fun for that class specifically, right? So as long as you do that, totally fine. Let's see how this lands out. All in all, I think this is some good directions towards this. So that's my thoughts of it. That's the summary. If I missed something, let me know. But also let me know what you guys think. And we will, of course, look at all the numbers on the Friday Global Lab whenever they're out. But for me, the takeaway is the areas they're touching on and changing, they're good. It's stuff that will long-term lead to PA being able to do better PvP balance without breaking 11 things in the process. It will, of course, be terrible balance right out the gate, but I think this is where we let Wansu cook a little bit. Wansu's been winning, so give them some time with this, and hopefully they don't just quit halfway through and they actually see through with the balancing afterwards. But I'm really excited to see what this end up being in total, but also you can't really make any assumptions about balance off of these. There are too many things that will change and can change for every class and the interactions. So yeah, we're just gonna have to wait and see how this plays out. But let me know in the comments what you guys think, and I'll see you all in the next one.